So right now, the education ecosystem is, it's a hot mess. Can I say it's a hot mess?
People keep saying, oh, we're getting back to normal, we're getting closer to normal. But I think we really need a new definition of what normal is.
I think there's a really slow recovery process that we're in right now. And unfortunately, because we don't have the masks and some of like the visual reminders, I think there's almost an assumption that we're further along in our recovery than we really are.
There's nothing that's happening right now that's new. This ask for teachers to do more than what they've been hired and trained to do, that's not new, but now we're doubling down on it. The mental health crisis in our children and youth, that existed before the pandemic, and now it's been exacerbated.
And before, it was always this, well, this is that pocket of kids, right? This is the poor side of town, etc. This is these, and we certainly have that. We have those that have and those that have not. But the pandemic made it worse for everybody, right? And I think everybody understands that now, that teachers professionally really do make a difference. We are the caretakers of the culture that pass it forward.
Winston Churchill said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." We are on the other side of a pandemic, and there was so much hope that we would capture the moment and reinvent, innovate, make some of the things that weren't working for all kids better in education. And people are worried that we didn't do that.
We see, for example, right now, enrollment in school has gone down. And it's not simply because of demographics, but it's also that many parents are choosing to educate their kids at home, avoid schools they think are unsafe. And that is an indicator that something is wrong. We haven't recovered.
The kids are not doing great. The kids need a lot of support and a lot of love right now. Coming out of COVID, I'm seeing a lot more anxiety, depression. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of overwhelm and overstimulation.
I've had a lot of violent outbursts in my classroom this school year. I had a fight break out in my classroom. I've had students throw things at each other, at me.
I think a lot of them experience a lot of trauma, so that they feel like whenever they do feel pain or they're hurt, they don't know how to process that emotion. So I think that's one big challenge.
It's important to keep in mind that there were thousands of kids who lost a parent, a grandparent, a caregiver to COVID as a result of the pandemic. And I think that's not seen because it disproportionately affects the poorest people. On top of that now, we've had dozens of mass shootings.
There's that piece, and there's the social emotional learning too, that there's so many things. If a student is not going home and eating right and sleeping and doing all these things and getting the care that they need, how can we expect them to be in the classroom and open their minds to learning?
I know our teachers work on that daily. I think what makes it hard is there's a lot being asked of us right now, and we can't do it all.
Every year we get more and more things that we're required to teach, but with less resources. And this job is becoming impossible on paper because of that.
Schools need to be resourced appropriately. We're not. Teachers need to be paid a living wage. It's not supposed to be easy work, right? Nobody's asking it to be easy work, but don't put barriers in front of all of these people that don't need to exist.
As we're having this conversation, the question of how comes up. How do we do this? What do we do? Everything feels daunting. Everything feels overwhelming. How? We help teachers to be able to create trusted spaces within their classrooms. We help administrators to be able to create trusted spaces for their staff in order that we are creating these entities of healing where people can show up being their authentic selves and kind of working through these really hard situations that we're all in.
What we really need is to let kids move themselves through these spaces. And they do that when they feel safe, when it's expected, when it's modeled by the teachers, and when the content that's around them warrants it.
Being visible, that's where the connection comes in. It's not from an office or an ivory tower where you're gonna write a slip, so I wanted to talk to you. Right now, I'm out in the open, I'm here in this yard. It's not just to stand here as another object, but something where I could bounce an idea off a student, maybe get their perspective on something, maybe ask them how they're doing.
We need to not be afraid of what our students tell us. We need to be empowered by it. That's when we're going to have them as allies.
The best leaders are the humblest servants. And when teachers come into the classroom, making it extremely known that they're paid to be here and that's it, is like, okay, I get it, you're paid to be here, maybe you're underpaid, but you still have a class and I still have to graduate. So can we just be kind?
I have specific teachers that don't welcome us to class. How was your weekend? Like little messages like that go a long way.
And to be honest, when students ask you questions, being condescending is like, okay, I will never ask you another question again.
I think I mostly see just the teacher because they don't really like tell us stories about them. We just know that they're there to teach us and stuff like that. But there are a few teachers that I know what happens like at home and what they're going through. And those are the teachers usually that help me and have conversations with me to know what I'm going through at home. I think those are better teachers.
They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So the question is, how are you going to show them? How are you going to create that safe environment? How are you going to deal with them when they come at you? And remember that it's not personal.
So what do you do to get them to care as much as you do about what you teach? It's building relationships. Make it matter. How do you do that? Is be real with them.
Is valued.
I know that students really seek that time to connect with each other as human beings. So that sounds really warm, fuzzy, and in some ways it is, but it's like the air they breathe, they need it.
When the classroom door closes, the teacher has a lot of power for creating that environment. And so my message to teachers is use that power. Use the power you have to build that community, because it does pay off, and you can create an environment that is supportive for your students without asking permission to do so.
It's on the horizon. I think it's something that we're going to talk about a lot in the years to come. It's going to come here before we know it, for kids to have the human experience in school. And I think we need to start rethinking how we teach, what we teach, and why we teach.
Our kids deserve us to do the hard thing. Let's not look at it like what's not possible. We gotta look at it at what is possible, to lean into it and have fun with change.